This week in Challengers, the Telluride Bush continued dominance on a hot streak, and we have a host load of Challenger teams getting ready to fly on over to Europe, have some baguettes, maybe some escargot, a little bit of wine. We'll have to wait and see as they get ready to play into the Paris Major Open. We're going to break down some of those teams, why this Paris Major matters so much, and also a personal rant from yours truly about everything going on in the Teampass situation. Let's dive into it, everybody. It's This Week in Challengers. Now, it's not often that we put a lot of weight, I think, Enigma, into the cups, but this one explicitly I did put a lot of weight into because we see a couple of storylines emerge from this bracket, and especially when we're talking about, like we just mentioned, the Paris Major Open that is happening this weekend. You're using this as a little bit of a litmus test for how some of these teams are performing ahead, of course, LAN. Now, LAN is a different beast, right? It's a lot different than online. I get it. But for me, one of the big things that I want to talk about here is that, yes, obviously the Bush go back-to-back. That's great. But it's a different team I want to focus on first before we talk about the Bush. And that's none other than Project Notorious. They've been in a little bit of a slump, right? They haven't looked themselves since coming back from the Atlanta Open that was there, where they almost make it happen, of course, in the Pro-Am, and then they're just a complete dud on the Challenger side. They haven't had that sort of teamwork that we've come to know and love them for. Not the case here in the Cup, baby. They're back in full form as they are on a 3-0 spree. They only go to a Game 5 against Omnia, and they get back to the Grand Finals until, unfortunately, they do get 4-1. But I do like seeing ahead of a LAN scenario that Project Notorious feels like they are a little bit more on the upward swing.
Yeah, I mean, there's two potential things to blame, of course, for the Project Notorious downfall. One of them is that collapse that happened inside that S&D. You and me were casting it. They were up, 5-2, 5-1, something like that, and gave up all those rounds. And then from there, they have looked like a wounded animal ever since. It's been kind of cruel to watch, really, at points. The other's B-Sport Josh. He tweeted out just before that Paris Open, the Pro-Am, turning around being like, hey, I don't know what losing feels like. I'm sure you've been taught a little bit over that. That's karma. That's cosmic karma coming straight back at you, man. But like, it's good to see them back at full form because I feel like, I don't know, almost felt like North America was missing a team for a moment. Sure. It felt like there was a giant hole that was left by Project Notorious. And so, yeah, it's good to see them bounce back at a very important time just before we do head over to Paris, where a lot of the players currently aren't players. So Jazz Beans are currently sweating their balls off. But yeah, this is great. This is them now back on form. And important for conversations we'll have later on in this episode as well when it comes to Challenger champs and potential EWC ramifications and all that stuff. Now all of a sudden put themselves back in the driving seats and making sure they do see Paris again in the summer.
Yeah, and another team, too, that I think that we also have to kind of put in that similar conversation is Omit Brooklyn, right? They come into this cup. They have very quick first couple rounds, 3-0 into a 3-1. And then it's when they go up against Bush, their first real opposition in this bracket, and they're able to take it to a Game 5. They come out as a winner. Awesome, feeling great. And then unfortunately for Brooklyn, they lose 3-0 against that Project Notorious roster. And then they get a little bit of their own medicine dealt back to them as Bush come back on in. And in another Game 5, Bush are able to close it out. So with this Omit Brooklyn roster, they're very hot. They're very cold. And I hope, this is a team that has a lot of experience on them and feels a little bit that they're probably going to look at this cup and be like, all right, yeah, we probably should have clutched it up. We got some good reps in against good teams. Let's fix our mistakes. Because when it comes to LAN, this team feels like you cannot overlook them of Two Real Gwyn, Pollux, and Rex, dude. It's like you cannot overlook them. You cannot doubt them out, especially when it comes to a LAN environment.
No, I mean, it kind of sums up the quality that we have in Challengers right now. And I know what a lot of people say, like it is recycled pros and all that stuff. This is our tier 2. Like if we still played the open system, these kind of teams would rock up and put up shock performances here and there. They just would. So yeah, Two Real, Pollux, Rex, and Gwyn is a ridiculous lineup really to have. They are. I feel like they are sitting relatively comfortably in that third seat, but I say comfortably. It's an awkward one for where you could kind of sit yourself pro point wise and kind of performance wise going on through the back portion of this year. Because when I try and think about who they'll go up against for spots at big events later on this year, it's not particularly pretty. So yeah, I mean, yeah, Brooklyn right now, they'll be wanting to figure out ways of getting not to Game 5s and seeing out series a little bit cleaner because Game 5 S&Ds can always be quite difficult. Or just turn yourself into S&D monster. They certainly have the firepower on that roster to do it, especially someone like Gwyn being on there. It feels like they should be seeing those out consistently, but it's just hard because, again, you look at the other side of that Game 5 and his Bush, and obviously that's stacked with ex-CDL talent too. So a good side that is just seemingly one or two small steps away from being one of the very top teams.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Bush, we did a whole episode last week kind of highlighting them and their ability to win that elite. They come here into this cup, and yet again, a lot of the same storylines that we talked about last week continue to show form here. in this bracket, right? We've seen this time and time again where Busch can win a big event and then kind of maybe let their foot off the gas and okay, now they kind of stumble, they falter a little bit. Yes, they have to play through the loser's side here, but I don't think it's necessarily the same story that we're used to seeing here, right? Obviously, they lose that game 5 against them at Brooklyn, and then they immediately have to go up against a very formidable Huntsman roster, and this is where we start to kind of see that ice in the veins of Busch that we kind of know and love, that when you're watching these series, you're not afraid about going to a game 5 if you're a Busch fan, right? Because they come in here against the Huntsman, they lock it on up. It's another quick 3-0 against Omnia. They lock it up in a game 5 fashion against them at Brooklyn, and they don't even have to worry too much about search and destroy in that grand final against Project Notorious, right? So I love the different things that we're seeing from this roster, where in some of these series, it's big blowouts, right? They're locking in on the respawns. They figured out the overload. Okay, great. And even in those series that go the distance, they're still locking in on those game 5, scenarios to be able to have. And just these are the good things. You love seeing both sides of the coin for a team, especially for one that is looking to go back to back when it comes to a LAN, right? They rock up in Atlanta. They're able to win that one. They win the Elite. They win this cup right before they go. A nice little 4-piece, dude, has to feel very good if you are the Busch.
It certainly does. We talked about the kind of success list that they've had this season, right? Coming in, they've generated an incredible fan base. And obviously, it's a great thing for challengers to see them up at the top. To be honest, I think there would be a huge miss should we not see them in Paris when it comes to the Esports World Cup. So they're on the right tracks right now to get there and make it happen. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on in this episode. But also for the players themselves, obviously, TWIC, he wants an opportunity to kind of fire back and to crack back at teams like the Miami Heretics, but also Kami, Capsule, Pro. They're those teams, they're those players, that kind of fall into that category that people talk about when they say recycled talent. I think they want a chance to kind of go out there and say, look, we deserve another shot because we are better than you think, and we're not just kind of sitting here at the top farming challengers. So, yeah, I mean, all 4 of these players, like a lot of pressure on them right now to maintain that form. We've seen teams go on runs like this and then stumble when they hit the big one. But I don't know, man. Like you're right. It feels like they've gone away from, we talked about it a lot at the start of the season, very hot, very cold, but that was because they couldn't rely on certain things like overload, for example. They had entire game modes that they were just god awful at, whereas now it feels like you've gained that ice factor, your respawns are pretty good across the board, if anything, your hard point's glorious. So yeah, I think that they're sitting themselves real pretty right now. It's just all about execution on the day, man. But again, they've shown that ice in the veins. They've shown that the experience matters.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's a nice little insurance policy, right? Where they figure out the overload. If you don't manage to snag that overload, you're still feeling good about that hard point. And if you go to that game 5 S&D, you're still feeling okay, right? You relieve a lot of pressure when you have that in your back pocket. But for this cup, I love the storylines that we saw. A couple teams that have been faltering a little bit, look a little bit back in form. Other ones have us questioning how will they perform at Paris. And for the Busch, it's just about rising to those expectations that they've now created on themselves by becoming such a winning roster. Now, obviously, the Paris Major Open, we're so excited for it just because it's Call of Duty Challengers back on land, but there's so many extra layers added to it, Enigma, because we've mentioned it literally in the last 4 episodes, where these are the events that start to really matter a whole lot more. It's not just about pride, it's just not about winning, it's not about making your name known. We come down to the pro points and why they matter so much, and in this particular instance, it's all about that Challengers Finals, the Challengers Champs, as we call it. You can see on your screen here the distribution of the different spots at Challengers Champs, okay? And we wanted to walk through it a little bit to kind of talk about the implications of what can happen here with the Open, with some of these teams and what can happen, right? So I'm going to kick it off and then just throw it over to you. The most important one, you make it to the grand finals, of course, of the Paris Major Open. You've already secured your spot in Challengers Champs, okay? But what's really interesting, and you brought this up, was that given some of the teams that we've talked about that we know and love, if they are able to secure that spot, it's going to have some ramifications for each of these regions when it comes to some of these other spots at Challengers Champs.
Yeah, so on the face of it, it is the Paris Open top 2, as you mentioned, then NA points top 4, EMEA points top 4, then APAC top 1, LATAM top 1, and then the other 4 we kind of find through a qualifier later on. The thing is, now we're going to make some assumptions here that if it's Paris Open 1 and Paris Open 2, for example, let's say they're both from North America, we're going to assume that the NA points then shifts to 3rd through 6th. Yes. So you gain those extra 2 spots, essentially, rather than adding in an extra 2 when it comes to that qualifier. I think they want those qualifiers to be a case of, like, the champions take it all. Yeah, exactly. That's the feeling that we're kind of getting from that. So with that in mind, all of a sudden this event becomes incredibly important because I think for winning it, you get like 25. Yeah, you get 25,000 points for winning the Paris Open. Then it's 20K, 17.5, 15. That's your top 4. Then it's 12.5K for top 6 and 10K for your top 8. So considering the small differences in pro points between some of the sides that are down at like 6th, 7th, 8th, this could have huge ramifications on what the rest of their season looks like, whether they have like a relatively straight shot at champs or whether or not they're going to have to play through a very different gauntlet in terms of qualifiers.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the pro points. I know a little bit of a flashbang here, friends, but just deal with us as we pull it up. But you can see here just through some of the pro points, like looking at North America, the reason why this is coming down to matter so much is because even just look at that, the difference between 4th and 5th. Yes, there's been some movement lately, so excuse that this is out of order. I don't manage this for the record, but shout out to the people who do because they do a great job. We reference this every week. But you can see already here, the difference between FaZe Falcons and Omit Brooklyn is literally 100 pro points, right, that are there. So it's like, depending on how good you do at the Paris Major Open, where do you sit yourself? Let's just say hypothetically, let's say, what if it's 2 EMEA teams that come 1 and 2 at the Open, right? Now, all of a sudden, this matters a whole lot more, where the FaZe Falcons are going to be looking at this being like, man, if they perform better than Omit Brooklyn at that Open, I need confirmation. I believe that they probably are going the FaZe Falcons roster, because why wouldn't they? They're part of big orgs. I would assume. That
we're in a weird situation. But we don't know who is and isn't going to Paris.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's safe to assume that they are. If they perform better on the land, man, all of a sudden that just kind of throws things up. And now when let's take out those top 4. We're now looking at whatever this qualifier looks like. Now we're looking at teams like Cabal, who weren't able to get to the Major Open. We're looking at teams like Bittersweet, Stush, right? These kind of just a step below on the pro point side. Then when it comes to that qualifier, it's still not going to be as free as maybe you would like.
No, definitely not. I mean, it's a tough situation regardless of the teams. Like, this is the business end of the season, so that's just kind of how it comes down to it. It kind of boils all down to these fine margins. Weird, again, how it comes down to 100 points. After the entirety of the season that we've had, all the cups, all the elites, all the opens, everything about it comes down to 100 points. But again, like, I think it would be a fair shout to say Bush and Notorious make the finals, right? Sure. That might be a pretty good bet considering how they both look right now. So yeah, you then suddenly, if you are like Stush, right? Like Rupert, KB, Skill in the scene, you kind of gone, all right, we're probably going to have to play through the qualifier. We're unlikely to kind of get the opportunity to be at champs. Well, all of a sudden that window could open. So you're begging that a lot happens ahead of you. You're begging that it is a 2 NA team final. Also that one of those NA teams isn't one of the ones that you're trying to catch because you're about 20,000 points down. So I don't know. It might be a bit much for Stush because they would probably have to win the tournament in order to, and then they would be guaranteed through anyway. But you get kind of how a lot of the ramifications play out here. So yeah, it's awkward. I mean, EMEA as well, if you want to click over, like, of course, we could see one of these teams make it through top 4. They're far and clear above everybody else. But let's say somehow we did get, I don't know, an Omit Noir and P7 finals in Paris. Both of those teams go through. Suddenly that opens things up to top 6. Well, top 6 right now, 115,000 points. There is 2 teams sat right behind them, basically, that would be looking to try and make things work. So yeah, it's just going to come down to so many fine things. But again, you're hoping teams above you do something to aid your situation. A lot of these teams will likely bank on the fact they have to play through qualifiers. But still, you never know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really just kind of fun to see how much this major open matters. You know, that this is where Challengers gets fun, ladies and gentlemen. I know we have a lot of viewers who, like, this is their first year kind of tuning in and following along with everything. This is kind of where you start. You get into that, I attribute it to similar like sports, right? So where you get into that playoff mode where you're looking at this team needs to win, this team needs to lose in order for this type of particular thing to happen. And that's why we're excited, because we love watching Call of Duty. We love that, okay, yes, it's Challengers back on land, but then just seeing who does make it to those 2 spots. How does that affect the pro point situation? Who now is going to kind of be vying for that qualifier spot when it comes in there? Who makes it? I mean, we're going to have some wild thing where some team is able to secure the spot, and now all of a sudden it's, we're looking at another team that is suddenly able to get moved on up. It's going to be wild. It's going to be chaotic. I know we'll be doing our best job to, once we obviously finish with the Paris Major Open, we'll be looking at the brackets, we'll be looking at the seeds and all that fun stuff. We'll do our predictions and all that fun jazz. But all I do know is that it's going to be a hell of a time just to see what this particular page looks like after the Paris Major Open. Now, listen, generally on this channel, we have a little bit of a rule. We try not to get involved in drama and cover like the interpersonal drama and workings of players and things like that. as casters, we just, we like to talk about gameplay, in-game type of stuff. Now, I'm going to get involved in a little bit of drama here. I've had this rant locked and loaded for about a couple days now. And I was like, what better place to let this unload than on our weekly podcast about challengers? Because, hey, listen, we got to have some spice every now and then, okay? And here's my thing. And there's been a lot of controversy rife around team passes ahead of this Paris Major Open, right? And I'm not even going to talk about like the whole how certain team passes weren't available and teams, the miscommunication that went on there. I'm not going to talk about any of that. What I'm locking in on is that there was this whole thing about how, okay, we had to add more team passes, and because of that, it means we had to move Challengers Finals off of the main stage, right? Just for scheduling wise, for stuff to be able to land, which is like, okay, I would rather teams be able to go and play than necessarily have to keep that type of thing. Great. But now we're starting to see there's only 51 teams signed up apparently for this Open, which means you had a bunch of people buy team passes and not actually sign up to go play the Open. And we've heard this on social media where people go, well, it's cheaper for me and 4 of my buddies to just all split a team pass because the team pass gets you access into the CDL event. So it gets cheaper for us to do that than for us to just all buy tickets. And then on the other side, you have people buying the team passes and then try and flip them for 3 to 4 times the value of what they bought the team pass for. And so to me, this rant kind of gets summarized in one big thing. That if you're buying a team pass because you're a fan of Call of Duty and want to go watch it and it's just cheaper for you, you're not a fan of Call of Duty. You know what you are? You're a loser. That's what you are. You're a big loser and nobody likes you. You're a gigantic idiot. Because that's what pisses me off, Enigma, is that if you're doing it because I want to go watch Call of Duty, you're not a fan. If you're taking away the opportunity from other people to play at LAN, you are not a fan. I don't care if you're a shitter. Sign up and play. Get double first rounded. Whatever. Who cares? You could say you went, drink beers beforehand, get absolutely hammered. Get up and yell when you're down, 200-0 or whatever in a hard point. I don't care. Go get slammed. It doesn't matter. But if you're going just to use it as an admission ticket, boy, do I hope that you don't have fun things happen in your life. It's been locked and loaded. I'm just so angry that like people take that opportunity away. And especially when I'm looking at like people like Cabal can't go to the major, right? And it's like, because they weren't able to get a team pass in time. And now it's like the org can't fund it because it's so last second and all this stuff. And it's just like, man, I just hope that like, somebody is looking at this and saying, this system is a little flawed, and I'm hoping that next year we can see some positive change in that system where if you are buying a team pass, you have to be signed up on there. Maybe there's like a pre-registration on Faceit, and then if you buy a team pass, right, it links to your team. Something that says if you're going to buy a team pass, you have to show up and play in some way, shape, or form. People much smarter than me will figure that out.
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head at the end there where like some of the system is definitely flawed, right? If you buy a team pass, you just have to play quite simply or be rejected from the event. Like that's got to be a thing. I think I come to there's comparing. I think that the resellers, that is an evil thing to do. Yeah. I put them. Yeah,
you're just a loser no matter what.
They're just assholes in general. Like, I'm sorry, you just are. But when it comes to folks who are buying team passes to not play, I think that goes against the entire ethos of Call of Duty esports. It goes against everything that it was built on. It was built on the idea that you, me, Noble, and Grandmaster Goj could rock up. Don't matter if we're going to get double-fisted. Don't matter. We will get absolutely battered straight out the tournament, and then we'll be double-fisted with pints of beer. We're going to have a great time and watch the rest of the event. And that's kind of like what these teams should be doing. And obviously, with the way it all turns out in the end as well, like you've bought tickets, and you've kind of screwed over everybody else in the ecosystem because the movement that's had to come through, we're now not going to be on main stage. It's all that kind of jazz that happens. Like if they don't buy those tickets initially anyway, Bush and Co. and all these other teams don't have an issue because there's all these spaces. So yeah, I'm with you. Like I don't get me wrong. I don't know if I'd have gone on it as strongly as you did, but like, yeah, it's not a good thing. It has to change. And again, I don't care if these teams rock up and they're just told, look, just play winners round 1 and losers round 1, get battered, and then just stand in the crowd. It's what we all used to do. Yeah. It was why these opens were so successful. It's why Call of Duty esports rocketed in the first place. It was because it was a community get-together, and people went, I'm going to give it a chance. So what? See how it goes. And a lot of these teams, they did go like 250-10, 0-6, and then whatever the other mode is, let's call it Overload, 0-8. Like, people who are just buying the team pass because it's cheaper. Do I get it in the sense of like, the current economy? Sure. But like also at the same time, you are fucking over the thing that you claim to support, and that isn't ideal.
Yeah, and that is just really what it is. It's like, it's just you're a fan, but yeah, you are screwing over like so many other people. And listen, like, we have so many things in Challengers that, like, from like an organizational standpoint, that we would love to see improvements on and things like that. But it's like, this is something that like we as a community can control, right? This is something that we can make happen. Of like, you as an individual, do not buy a team pass just because it is cheaper to go to an event and then just like not play it. And that to me is where I get kind of frustrated, right? Is like, you know, we can argue about so many things that can be improved in Challengers. This is one thing that we directly can control.
The other thing is as well, if you think of the bigger picture there too, like, what could happen is they put up the price of team passes, right? I don't see the world. I like, respectfully, like, tickets to go aren't cheap per se, but compared to many other events that you could go to for a full weekend, they're cheap, right? They're good prices. So like, don't get me wrong, you obviously saw accommodation, flights, and everything else, but you would to any other event. If you went to, I don't know, Wimbledon for 4 days, like, try and get those tickets, like, it is, you know, all those kind of things. So it's like, the one thing you're probably going to end up causing here, I don't think you're going to see a reduction in your typical fan attendance packages. You're going to see an increase in team passes.
Yeah.
So again, the thing that you're claiming to support and aiming to support, you're not really delivering on that. And also, I don't think it looks good that we only have 50 odd teams at the Challengers Open. That's not a great thing. And again, we probably would have had more had we not sold out of all those tickets when we did, as early as we did, because people just want to go and stand in the crowd. So yeah, you got to think of the bigger picture there. You just got to think of you are part of a community, whether you are playing, attending, casting, production in the back, you're part of a community and you got to act like it.
I think the unfortunate part too is you might see what we've already seen this season too, which is sometimes we've seen where there's been confusion about, a team pass doesn't get you access to the event, right? Which is the potential solution that we see come through, where they go, all right, if this is such a problem, then guess what? Sorry, unfortunately, a team pass doesn't get you an event. Maybe they'll offer like if you do get a team pass, then we'll offer you discounted tickets or something. Maybe but like, yet again, that's still more money, still more burden on these Challenger players who are still mostly funding themselves to these types of events that are there. So, and I think that's why people don't think about like, what are the ramifications of something like this happening? And it's exactly like you said, it's either team passes cost more or you're not going to be able to do as much on a team pass because people are abusing it, right? So it's just my call out. If you know people, this is kind of one of those like bystander messages where if you know somebody, if you got a friend who's like, dude, let's just pick up a team pass when we go to this major because it's so much cheaper. Call your friend a loser and do us a favor.
Just play.
Yeah, just either play or publicly shame them. Do one of the two things, for me. That's been my rant.
I
locked
just can't
and
wrap
loaded.
my head around it either. Like, I would love to play.
Dude,
like, I
would love that.
We're not allowed. Like, we're not allowed. Like, we are literally not allowed to play. It would be glorious. Like, dude, just imagine getting to rock up with your buddies. And yeah, we're going to get battered. Of course we are, whatever. But if you hit a 3-piece, brother, we're going to be talking about that all night in the bar.
Those people, I don't care what my KD is. Those people I'm standing up over the monitor and spit's flying out of my mouth as I yell. Like, I don't care.
Brother, I once clutched a 1v3 in Cold War against high-level Challenger players. I still, talk about that shit. Like, it would be glorious to do that online. Like, even if we get battered afterwards, it's like, I don't care. You're all awful. Like, go home. Your tournament's done. It's mine, actually. But you know what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go grab 2 cold beers and sit myself. I mean, just like, I don't know, like, again, it's the ethos, it's the spirit, it is everything that Call of Duty is this idea that anyone can just rock up and play. It's a beautiful thing. Please don't spoil it.
So obviously, as we gear up towards this Paris Major Open, we're going to be watching all weekend long. Or I'll be at home watching. Andy's going to be there in person. Maybe we'll get some clips or something that we can stitch in for next week's episode or something. Maybe man on the ground, man on the street, give me a quick little interview or something. Make some content for us while you're there or something. Be useful, please. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, point being, we're going to be locked in. A lot of implications for that Paris Major Open. Will Bush continue the dominance? Will we see somebody else rise from above, grab those 2 open spots? What impact will it have on the pro points? Enigma, like I said, you're going there. What are you most excited to see this weekend?
The fans. I think that this is going to be a generational event, right? This is the La Defense Arena. Not the La Defense Arena. La means so La Defense Arena, dumbass. But it is a case of the reported crowds anywhere between 20 and 30,000 people. That is insanity. I obviously am going to be going with the Gentle suit, so that's going to be ultras. They are incredibly passionate. It's going to be flags, it's going to be banners, it's going to be songs and chants and beer and all that kind of fun jazz that you experience at so many other events. I think sometimes esports kind of lets that you don't really get that like family feel kind of approach to it. I don't mean families and families should be attending. I mean as in like everyone there feels like, dude, those of you who are wearing your jerseys, you are a family. But also, it's not just the Teampass fans. When I went to Madrid last year, the Optic fans got involved in the back and forth, and the Heretics fans got involved in the back and forth, and it lifted the level of everybody. And to see what this event's going to be like is going to be glorious. I will try and get over to the Challenger stuff, which I believe is in a different space. And there is dubious conversations about whether or not you can actually get in, but hopefully I get to see some of the Challengers community too, because you guys all rock.
Well, hey, we'll see. If you see anything while walking around, make sure you say hi to him. I'm sure he's not nearly as scary as he looks. That's all we got for you this week. Let us know, who are you most excited to see play back on land? Who do you want to make it to Challengers Champs? All kinds of questions that we love to answer. But that's all we got for you this week in Challengers.